Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from Delta CX. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy, and today is June 29, 2021, and it is time, as always, for Office Hours Ask Me Anything. I'll be here for about an hour taking any questions that you have. You can ask in the LinkedIn chat, the YouTube chat, or over here at deltacx.link/ask. And since we only have one question that came in ahead of time, I thought it would be fun to take a few minutes for some comedy, some comic relief. Hello, Ragarai. I'm going to entertain everybody, hopefully, by reading you an article from what was my local newspaper in 1989. And this was a restaurant review, and they gave the restaurant no stars. And the way the guy wrote the article, to me, is a triumph of writing. I think it is one of the best pieces of writing I've ever seen. It's hilarious. I used to not be able to get through it without cracking up. So while I wait for your questions in the chat room or at deltacx.link/ask, let me take a good 5 or so minutes and read you this restaurant review for a restaurant that I believe has since closed many times since. It was called Captain Bill's Commodore Inn. It was in Bayshore, New York. So I would like to perform this for you now. This is the restaurant review in 1989 of Captain Bill's Commodore Inn. Hi, Ekta. I'm starting with comedy before we get into the questions. The best appetizer at Captain Bill's Commodore Inn is fresh, varied, and colorful. Unfortunately, it's the fruit cocktail. Once you go beyond the grapes and chopped apples, Captain Bill's ranks no higher than seaman apprentice. Whatever stripes or insignias it earns for the pretty waterside sight are stripped away in the kitchen. This is a restaurant complex where you must assume food is secondary. On a sunny summer day, you could be content walking around the marina and gazing at the Great South Bay. You no doubt could be satisfied sailing in too. All you need is a warm breeze and a cool drink. But be careful. The Framboise Kir Royale is akin to Smuckers and seltzer. For $6.50, you can imbibe a kiddie cough medicine punch called the Commodore and keep the glass as a warning. Other cocktail suggestions could lead you to form a temperance union on the spot. So instead of accepting the formal escort to your table and immediate decision-making, choose to wander. Survey the scenery and the expanse of the establishment's quasi-colonial rooms. Captain Bill's sprawls from catering spaces to a bar to the main dining area. Tables for two have most of the top water views, especially those that look onto the permanently berthed Commodore. The 72-foot sloop-turned schooner now claims Captain Bill's as home port. Exiles are in the center of the room, where disappointment can only be remedied by the company of very good friends. Some bucolic images decorate an elevated gazebo that's set apart from the high occupancy tables. The cuisine and service at Captain Bill's tell you bluntly that, as at receptions gone by, the meal is an aside. The food is carelessly prepared, sloppily presented. In an unintended gesture of benevolence, a waitress may delay bringing the bread, a substance so rubbery you wouldn't fit it to the ducks that swim near the schooner. You wouldn't feed it to the ducks that swim near the schooner. You do get a celery and carrot-laden metal relish tray. Don't fight over the lone scallion. You won't battle over the soups, even if Bury oyster crackers come the closest to a decent carbo. I still can't read this without cracking up, and I've been reading this since 1989. The soups are uniformly sad. The New England clam chowder is dropped into your bowl like paste. The Manhattan version is thin and watery. The content of the dense seafood bisque is barely identifiable. The hot combination platter is a grouping of papery fried shrimp, stuffed mushrooms coming apart, a tasteless shrimp scampi greasily afloat in its own plate, and the sole survivor, an acceptable baked clam. Its cold counterpart is a tribute to small... I may need you to read this. I may not get through this. Its cold counterpart is a tribute to... Can you read this? You have to come read this. Come on. I can't make it through. Okay, you have to start here. It's called Counterpart. Out loud. It's not in your head.
like reading, like actually reading. Okay. It's called Counterpart is a tribute to small flavorless shrimp. Though
Tough.
Tough raw clams and what a waitress acknowledges as sea legs, quote unquote, a testament to culinary chemistry and engineering. Oh, that's my favorite part. Beneath the heavy mantle of cheese and mystery that shrouds seafood au gratin is another example
Sample.
is another sample of the flavored fish paste, though any description implying flavor
Shouldn't be misconstrued.
right. Can you take it from here?
I don't think so, but I'll try. Oh my God.
At $15.50, this indignity is a moderately priced main course. You could, for example, spend $25.50 for bendable, bland Alaskan king crab, or drop $30 for a 2-pound lobster that's broiled into a steel-belted radial.
Do you know what a steel-belted radial is?
Is that oh no, the radial like a tire?
Yes.
Oh gosh. So it was like fancy shaped pen. No, like a radial as in radio. Okay.
Or
Lament the fact that your tab here could end up more expensive than the pre-theater dinner at the Rainbow Room. A pale, a pale, monochromatic coating enfolds each item in the fried combination seafood platter. Shape will enable you to tell scallop from clam from fish fillet. Lobster thermidor is a clearly defined travesty. Ruthlessly overdone. Broiled swordfish is a thin cut, not bolstered by the shower of slivered almonds. 2 mounds of stuffed flounder fall apart, revealing some kind of mushy fish chow that Garfield would reject.
do Italians know Garfield?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
You can order the staple, lobster tail, and filet mignon. It's an adequate choice given the alternative. The cut of beef is tender, especially compared with the charcoal gray slab of juiceless sirloin. The wine list is routine in an eatery that pushes cocktails, but the 1987 Drouhin Chablis, $19, is a dry, reliable white, and 1987 Drouhin Beaujolais Village, $12.50, a fruity, friendly red. You can make it.
I don't think I'm going to make it, but I'll try. And then we'll be taking questions. So
Okay.
everyone, send in your questions while I try to finish this. Desserts receive their own cart at Captain Bill's. Key lime pie is a single-shaded crime. I always love that one. And apple crumb pie is pasty. Cheesecake is commercial grade. The double chocolate truffle delight mistakes hardness for richness. You could support a mailbox in the chocolate mousse. But be philosophical and remember that in your end is your beginning. The best dessert at Captain Bill's is fresh, varied, and colorful. It's the fruit salad. Oh, my all-time favorite. I hope everybody laughed at that. Hello, anyone? Is anyone still here? Did you all tune out? This is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and hopefully I've stopped crying. Stephanie says, ooh la la, framboise key royale. We are getting fancy today. Hello, people. All right. We have a question. We have one question that I got ahead of time, and one question that seems to be here from Raghurai. But I want to know what everyone thought of Captain Bill's Commodore Inn. You will be unsurprised to hear that they closed after that. So, a question I got ahead of time, which I think I got last week just after we finished the show, so someone was just a little late. It said, and I quote, "Wow, boot camp is the best, but how is validity without going uni?" I think what that question is asking is, boot camps seem like a good idea, but are they still valid, or is the education as good if you didn't go to a university? I would say right now, not too many places are getting CX or UX education right. In general, some universities are certainly doing it better than most boot camps. So while the boot camp might seem fast or inexpensive, it really isn't necessarily the best way to go. We've got lots of shows on this. I've got hours of content on this. I think if you just go to YouTube and type Delta CX Bootcamp, or Delta CX Education, I think you'll find lots of thoughts on these and some interviews I've done. I think it was episode 104 where we had Julia DeBarry on. So check the live stream podcasts playlist for that. Hey, Charlene, did you miss the, I don't even know what to call how we started the show. Comedy. Did you miss the comedy? I would say that look very carefully at boot camps and university programs, because sometimes they both stink. I think university can certainly look more impressive than a boot camp, but sometimes the education was still quite poor. So you do have to really assess these things on an individual basis. Raghurai says, Charlene says, "Oh no, I'll rewatch." Yes, if you missed the beginning of this, please rewatch. I read my favorite newspaper restaurant review of all time. It's from 1989, and I can't get through it without crying laughing, and Pier Mario had to come read some of it because I was crying so hard. Raghurai says, "Debbie, I hope you are doing well and staying safe." Thank you, I am, and I hope you are too. I have a question. Can you explain the types of e-commerce marketplaces? For example, experience-driven versus API-driven versus commerce-driven. Maybe I'll do my best. These are not usually ways that I describe e-commerce sites. These sound like maybe words people would use internally at a company. Certainly, if something is based in APIs, then that is kind of and again, I don't know if you're a programmer or what your background is, but that's kind of a technical and programming thing. So usually an API means you're bringing in functions from someone else's site or system or platform. So for example, on an e-commerce site, how do people pay? If we're going to charge their credit card, say with Stripe, we're going to use Stripe's API to charge that card. If we're going to take PayPal, we might use PayPal's API to charge that card. APIs are just a way to build in another company or system's functionality or platform into what we're building. So I wouldn't necessarily think of an e-commerce site as API driven. I've never heard anyone say that, and e-commerce has been one of my specialties since 1997. So I've certainly used APIs in the course of e-commerce and online marketplaces, but I've never called them API driven. Now, there's a flip side of that, which is sometimes the e-commerce company wants to be the platform, so they create an API. So for example, people can build software that sells on eBay because eBay has an API, and they can use that API to tie into the eBay system, so an outside company can list items on eBay. So perhaps here we're really talking maybe about the business model, that this company is going to create an e-commerce system that has its own API so that other people can tie into this e-commerce system's functionalities. I am not sure. But when you say commerce driven, I would think all e-commerce websites are commerce driven. So I'm not too sure why that would be a type. And as for an e-commerce website being experience-driven, I believe that everything is experience-driven, including non-e-commerce websites. I can't think of anything that exists that isn't experience-driven, and I think Darren said something about that in one of our office hours group adventures, where he was like, pumping your gas is an experience. You cannot will gas into your car. You will have to interact with things. So I hope that helps. Let me know if you have a follow-up question. I am here for another 45 minutes, and we actually have no other questions. I think people are getting into summer mode in the Northern Hemisphere and enjoying that they are going out. Maybe they're vaccinated, so we might have a little bit of a quiet summer. But if anybody has questions, I'm happy to take them. And you are welcome to ask those questions in the chat rooms, or you can use our link, which is at the top of the screen at all times, deltacx.link/ask. And that link is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you think of a question in the middle of the night on a Thursday, you can send it in. Ragarai says, how do I record what you just answered? It is recorded. Great news. So this is being broadcast on YouTube right now. And after this session is over, YouTube will have it archived. So you'll be able to go to the Delta CX channel on YouTube, which is just go to YouTube and write Delta CX, and you should find my logo with all the colored circles. You should be able to subscribe. Usability, test that subscribe button and empathize with the like button, and that this recording will be there, and I will put it into the office hours playlist. In fact, I can even do that now while we are talking because we don't have a lot of questions today. So let me sort this one into the office hours playlist, and that way you should have a very easy time finding it later. And since your question was second, you'll probably be maybe 10 minutes in or less. So let's set that up. And meanwhile, I'm happy to take any other questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, commentary on Lean UX. Whatever might be on your mind. I'm going to keep checking our question systems to see if anybody has a question. Let's see. Oh, good. Oz is here. Thanks to Oz for not only teaching me pivot tables, but today he taught me something that I don't even remember the name of, but it was about making sure when you're kind of copying Excel cells that Oz, how do you even describe what I asked for help with today? You were great. Excel, Oz says, how long before you're able to host this in both English and Italian? Purtroppo il mio italiano non è abbastanza bene. Sono super pigra, non faccio la pratica frequentemente perché nella casa parliamo in inglese e per il lavoro parliamo in inglese e per gli spettacoli di YouTube parliamo in inglese. So I don't really speak as much Italian as I should. I'm a bit lazy with it because my whole world is in English until I walk out my door and have to talk to someone who doesn't speak English. Oz says he taught me absolute and relative cell references, and he's a genius. Let's put him on the screen and tell everybody if you need to know stuff about Excel, you want to know Oz. And here on YouTube, he is Excel on fire. Hashtag not sponsored. Go follow him there. Ragarai says, I have your book, but I haven't finished reading it yet. I know, it's very long. At what section can I find UX knowledge about marketplaces? Not in my book. My book is a little bit more strategic than tactical, and I do not have any sections that says, here's what to do if you are working on UX for a marketplace. So I do not have that in the book. If you are waiting to get to that part, stop waiting because it's not in there. The book is more strategic and more about how we can improve our workplaces and our strategies and the work that we do for our customers. It is not about here's how to make a better e-commerce website. So I'm sorry, I don't have that. And that's probably not something I would write because I've been working on e-commerce websites for over 20 years, and each one has needed something different, and I had to learn what it needed by doing good qualitative research, usually some sort of observational study and interviews, and now I'm doing Larry Marine's task analysis approach. So I cannot say like, and here's the way to do an e-commerce website. The example that I give is we're actually working on an e-commerce website now here in the Delta CX world. And they needed some better landing pages, but we didn't just jump in and work on landing pages. First, we did a big observational study to understand how people search for items like these in Google, which search results they trust, which websites they went to. So we saw competitors' website and we saw our clients' websites. We saw, I think, 20 competitors. We we asked people a lot of questions about their decision-making process, both before they get to the websites and once they're on the website. So we ended up with really a mountain of business intelligence. We ended up with a lot of information that can help this company, not just with their landing pages, but with their search results and with their cart and checkout, and with some of the other features on their website that we watched people use, and we saw what was working and what wasn't working. Sorry, I'm going to take off my shoes. Nobody can see that. Ha ha. So the best thing I can tell you about a marketplace or an e-commerce system is you need that qualitative research that looks specifically at what's going on with this particular website or business model and takes a look at how it can be improved internally and made better for the customers and users who are going to interact with it or use that API. If you have an API, remember you have an extra customer. You don't just have the people who are selling things or the people who are shopping for things. You have the developers who write code around your APIs. So you have a whole other audience that you need to remember that you are building for or writing for. I hope that helps. So this is Office Hours Ask Me Anything. I do this every Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. Last week I had so many questions I was drowning, and Kayleen was volunteering to help, but I talked her out of it. And this week we've got no questions. So I guess in the end it all balances out. While we wait for some questions, I'll remind everybody of some shows that are coming up on this channel. Every Friday is a short reaction stream. You send me stuff at deltacx.link/reaction and let me know what it is and what you think of it, and I will react to it. So we have a little short reaction stream. That's every Friday, 6:30 p.m. So you've got office hours every Tuesday, reactions every Friday. And you can always send in your questions /ask. And let's see, what else? Oh, don't forget to mark your calendars for Wednesday, July 7. I'll be doing the second half of the show that I started last night. So episode 115 is really a two-parter with future episode 116. So I want to make sure everybody marks calendars for that. That is going to be explaining Agile and Lean and how we can use those principles in what we do, but not in the way you've probably been told. I'm going to give you a variation of that. Excel says, come on, y'all, wake up. Where are the questions? I know, sometimes I'm just flooded. Shannon says, how are you doing? Thank you, Shannon. I'm pretty well. I got some dinner on my shirt, but luckily it's like out of the picture, so nobody had to know that. The dinner was good. It wasn't eaten at Captain Bill's Commodore Inn, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, when the stream ends, you want to go back and start it from the beginning because I read a restaurant review that got 0 stars. That is so funny, I can't read it without crying. Pier Mario had to rescue me and come in and read some of it. But no, really, I'm okay. I'm isolating and avoiding most of the world. And luckily, I like my own cooking. And the dogs are well. You can follow them on Instagram. And I'm okay. Ragorai says, where can I learn everything about SaaS marketplaces? I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that. I don't know how to tell anybody how to learn everything about a thing. but I would probably just be Googling the hell out of it, because I honestly don't know how to tell you how to learn everything about SaaS marketplaces. It's just too broad. You'll be reading forever. It's so broad. I'm sorry, I don't know. Maybe ask a more specific question. But the real question is, Shannon, how are you? And how's the baby? We've got a question from Marco. Let's see, copy paste. Marco says, what's the best way to get better with user research? Well, of course, I could say practice, practice, practice. But in addition to that, to me, the best way to get better with user research is to be working with a mentor or coach, because you can practice and you can do volunteer work and you can do passion projects and you can make up stuff. But if you don't have somebody who's looking at your plan and your screener survey and your questions and your first attempt at an interview and your second attempt at an interview, and if you don't have somebody who's going to give you the tough love and go, here's where this could be better, or here's something I would suggest you not do, or gosh, your research plan isn't quite right. If you don't have somebody looking over that, then you're just guessing and you won't be able to level up or get better because you don't have somebody who's really reviewing your stuff. So I believe that the best way to get better at pretty much anything in our world is to be doing it, whether it's real work or whether it's fake sample work or it's volunteer work. But whatever it is, I think you really need that mentor or coach to watch it at every step, every phase. Because I have some of my coaching clients who try to blow through some of the things themselves, and then by the time they're coming to me and they've already finished the interviews or they're trying to work on their analysis, and they've unfortunately made a key mistake even in their planning. Now, the plan was kind of off, the questions were kind of off, the recruiting was kind of off, so the interviews weren't as great as they could have been. They didn't necessarily get the information that matched their goals. Now they're trying to turn it into something. And I really think we should have caught that way, way before. That's my suggestion. I hope that helps. Shannon says, we're doing all right. Okay, I hope so. What else? This is a bizarrely quiet. It's not even 4th of July yet. Where'd everybody go? Ragarai says, when is this Agile information session? July 7. That's going to be July 7 here on the YouTube channel and on LinkedIn at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. So whatever is 30 minutes ago for where you live. I think I can't, hold on, let me check my clocks. I keep a bunch of clocks on my phone. So let's see. If you are in India, that would be 10 p.m. If you are in UK, that would be 5:30 p.m. If you are in New York, that would be 12:30 p.m. So that's when I always do my shows, at that time. And this will be July 7. You can tune in live. Shannon says, what do you have coming up as far as speaking at conferences? Ragarai says, I'm Eastern time, so 12:30 p.m. for you. Thank you, Shannon, for these lovely questions today. Unfortunately, I do not have many conference sessions coming up. I'm used to doing about 50 events a year. I usually pack my schedule with conference sessions, but I found that conferences this year on their application forms were saying, we're going back to you're San Francisco, 9:30 a.m. A lot of conferences said they were going back to in-person. So the conferences I usually apply to or speak at were like, hey, see you in Orlando, Florida. And Shannon already knows I'm not going there. See you in Baltimore. See you in Pocono Mountains. And I was like, well, crap, I know I'm not going anywhere this year. I'm definitely not traveling. I'm isolating. I'm scared to death of COVID. I'm not going anywhere. And so, yeah, I look like that and everything. So I did not apply to too many conferences because so many of them said that they would not be hybrid, they would not be remote, they would be in person. And so Zurich, not applying, so even the Zurich people, like, you're coming and speaking at our event, right? I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. So even though Zurich is just a couple of hours flight north of me, I don't want to do it. I'm just too afraid. So I'm still not vaccinated. I'm too afraid. And so I'm not going anywhere. Kayleen says, meow. Well, hello, meow to you too. Kayleen, if you just got here, you definitely want to watch the beginning of this when it's done, because we did monster comedy and I think you're going to like it. Oops. So thanks for asking, Shannon, but I don't have a lot of things coming up because they all assume we're all going back to in-person conferences. And my thought was, oh no, I'm playing it safe. You did miss it, Kayleen, but it was recorded. Okay, we've got Abhishek, and let's type in that question. And I think I'm going to need a little help understanding what you're saying. Abhishek says, let's put it up on the screen. While doing usability testing as an outcome recommendations, is it advised to do the suggested UI as well? So here's what I think. Oz says, I'm getting out of here. I'm tired of virtual presentations. I'm vaccinated. And as soon as possible, I'm putting on my mask and getting my ass on a plane. I know you will, Oz. And if you get your ass on a plane, come say hi to us, because I'll let you do that. But I'm not going anywhere. Shannon says our events are all virtual. Yep, I applied. So Abhishek, I think what you're saying here, and tell me if I'm wrong because you're in YouTube, so you'll be able to tell me. I think you mean if you're doing usability testing, is it okay to test medium fidelity, or should you be testing high fidelity with full visual design and branding and typography and photos and things like that? Is that what you're asking, or did I misunderstand your question? Yes, well, I follow Oz on Instagram, so wherever he goes, I will virtually stalk him. I just want to check that I understood Abhishek's question correctly before I answer it incorrectly. No one will be admitted during the dramatic water refill. This is green, but it's being green screened. Looks like a good trick. Well, I'm going to start answering that question as if I got it right. So Abhishek, tell me if I'm going in the wrong direction. So it really depends on what you're testing. Very often I am testing medium fidelity with just a little bit of color, or generally the font, but I'm usually not testing a finally designed thing. That's just my style. There's nothing wrong with testing a finally designed thing, especially if you have all the components handy and they've all been vetted. Maybe you have a style guide or component library or design system. I would say it really depends on what you're testing. Very often I'm testing the usability. And so since I'm focused on the usability, I'm less focused on the visual design, because ultimately, if the visual design is done well, it won't make your usability worse. Where a company has some poor visual design, the visual design can make the testing worse. If you're looking to prove that to the company, then you probably do want to test with the final UI and branding and styling and visual design, so that you can possibly prove that there's something wrong with the visual design that needs to be changed or improved. So so I would say it depends on what you're trying to test and why. I've done both. I've tested things that were prototypes that were highly realistic and fully visually designed, and I've tested, mostly in my world, medium fidelity stuff, because I'm looking more for flaws in the concept or the execution of the concept, rather than trying to test anything about the visual design. Abhishek says, we recommend some UX or product changes based on the usability testing, so the recommendations will be in the form of UI or new features. I'm not sure I understand that either. why wouldn't the recommendations just be recommendations? The recommendations don't have to be UI. The recommendations don't have to be new features. If maybe it's just fixing something. Maybe it's a new workflow. It might not be a new feature. It might be fixing an old feature. So I feel like there's something here I'm not getting. Afzal, you posted half of a question. You may want to go back and post the rest of the question. You wrote, "How do you?" And I don't know how that ends, so I don't know how to answer it. Charlene says, when I do usability testing, I sometimes do basic wireframes as design recommendations so our amazing stakeholders understand. Right. Sometimes it ends up being important to do our UX architecture, or at least the interaction design part, in a more high fidelity approach so that people have a sense of what this might actually look like in the end. But again, that's usually more efficient when we have a style guide or a design system or something like that. If we still have to pass our screens to a visual designer for every screen, it's probably going to slow us down and make UX seem slower than we should be. Ooh, that reminds me to add a slide for July 7th. Design systems. Let's write that down. Alrighty. Abhishek says, okay, got it. Yeah, I hope I'm close here. So let's see. We've got a question from Stephanie and then a question from Farzaneh. And then it looks like we've got finally Afzal. So let's get all of this. Okay, copying and pasting everybody's questions so I don't lose them. And let's start with Stephanie. Stephanie wants to know my favorite Mandalorian character and why. We did like The Mandalorian. We did watch all of The Mandalorian. Do you have a favorite Mandalorian character?
Thinking about it.
Yeah. You were probably a little more... Who?
I'm thinking just being silly, Amy Sedaris.
Amy Sedaris. That's a good choice.
And I mean,
I mean, Amy Sedaris is so good in everything she does. It's hard to not love her. If you're not familiar with Amy Sedaris, that is the real name of the actress who played the mechanic that the Mandalorian would always go to have his ship fixed. She had like the curly wig and had to take care of the baby at one point. And she had the bots working for her. She's a well-known American comedian with a very famous brother. So yeah, Amy Sedaris, she's just so good. Charlene says, Baby Yoda. Shrivas, I see your question. I will add it to the list. Stephanie says, yes, she's awesome. If you really want to see Amy Sedaris do something awesome, though it's a bit of an American reference and it might not totally make sense to non-Americans, she did a show many years ago called Strangers with Candy. And it has Stephen Colbert and some other people in it. And it makes fun of some TV shows that were on in America when I was a teenager. And it's just brilliant. But again, if you didn't grow up in America when I did, you might not get some of the references. But it's really good. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these questions. How do you decide on success metrics? Super question. And then we'll get to Afzal's question. And we'll also keep putting up the questions from Farzaneh. So how do you decide on success metrics was Farzaneh's first question, and I've got your second question on the list. So to me, you decide on success metrics both internal to your CX or UX department and with your larger team, product managers, engineers, because everyone might have a different definition of success. Engineers might feel it's a success if it's not too buggy, if it doesn't break, if it doesn't need to be fixed. But we're looking at something else. we're usually looking at outcomes for the customer. So you have to start with what was the goal of this project. So if the goal was making checkout faster and easier to use, then you want to see metrics that show checkout is faster and easier to use. That might mean timing, how long people take to check out when they don't know you're watching them. It could mean more checkouts. Maybe you believe that if checkout is faster and easier, more people will check out. So you're going to check your metrics. Oh, wow, it used to be 10% of people who hit our checkout actually finished it. Ooh, now 20% are, now 15% are. Look, any boost is a good one. It doesn't have to be to go from 10% to 90%. You could go from 10% to 15%, make a huge difference at a medium or large company, or sometimes a small company. So the success metrics to me have to do with the success of the original goal of the project, and assuming that we didn't use a dark pattern or do something hurtful to the user. So I would say look back at whatever the original goal of the project was and build your success metrics around that goal. I think where sometimes teams go wrong is they lose sight of their original success criteria or their original goals, and they just think like, does it work? Is it not too buggy? Do people seem to like it? Then it's good. Well, hold on. Did it solve the problem? Did it make the problem worse? Did we address the right problem? And we're only going to really figure that out if we make sure that some of these metrics are tied to the right original goal and we don't lose sight of that original goal. Solomon says, goals! I guess you're in a European soccer mood. So I hope that helps. If you have a follow-up question, let me know. Oh, and I've got a question from Farzaneh here. Oh, I'm sorry. You asked it in two places, and I saw it in the LinkedIn chat. So got it. It's just that I have a list of questions, so I'm never ignoring anybody's question. I just have a list, and I will get to yours when I can. Okay, so next is Afzal's question. Welcome, Afzal. I'm not sure we've seen you before too much. Your name doesn't look familiar to me. Yeah, and Solomon says, what are the goals for this initiative? A question sometimes skipped because people sometimes assume the goal is to deliver the asset. Right. People might think the goal is just make us wireframes. That's not really the goal. We are building a feature or a product to change an outcome for the user. I'm going to talk about that too on July 7th when we talk about Agile and Lean, because that is a key tenet of Lean. So, yeah, remember the original goals and consider the outcomes for our users and customers, whether they're trial or paid or something else. Remember them. That's why we're here. That's why this whole channel is here. All right, let's take a look at Afzal's question. I think I can put these up on the screen. Okay. How do you go about finding target users for an idea that is still very generic? For example, if you're out there trying to improve the dining experience. And then Afzal says, I've been reading a book called UX for Lean Startups, and she talks about being very specific when defining your target audience. Okay, I haven't read that book, but let's talk about your question. Thank you for the question. So let's see. How do you go about finding users if the idea is still generic? Well, you have to think about what you are possibly improving for the customer. So if you have a startup and the startup has an initial idea, and it could be a very vague idea, it could be, I think we should do something about how people make appointments to see their doctor. Okay, super vague, no idea what the solution is, not sure what's going on here, but you would want to interview people who make appointments with doctors and learn how they do this now, what's going right, what's going wrong, and how it can be improved, some of their tasks, habits. Make sure you go to the Micro Lessons playlist here on the YouTube channel and look up all of our task analysis videos. We have task analysis, personas, and optimized task flow. I think they're supposed to go in that order, but they're not in that order on the playlist. But that's the order. So if you're saying your startup is trying to improve the dining experience, still very broad, not too sure what's going on there, but in that sense, you would be looking to recruit people who frequently dine out, perhaps. Perhaps you are writing a screener survey that looks for people who live in a certain place and who tend to eat in restaurants, not takeout, tend to eat in restaurants at least twice a week. I'm making it up. You make this better. Then you've got a very general audience. Excuse me. You want to make sure that you pick some men, women, other genders if you get them, different age groups, maybe some single people and some families and some couples. You want to mix it up a little bit. You don't want to just talk to 4 people. They could be 4 weirdos. So you want to make sure that you talk to a good mix of these different buckets of people that you might have, because that's going to give you a larger view of what is going on in dining experiences. But you're going to have your research focused well enough to know, what am I asking these people? You can't be like, dining experiences. How's that going for you? So you're going to need to know what you are generally looking for, working on. Does it have to do with ordering food? Does it have to do with choosing where to eat? Does it have to do with how they pay? You're going to have to narrow in, even if it's still general and vague, on what aspect of the dining experience you're looking to change or improve. And that way you can do your observational and interview research. And I always suggest make it around tasks and habits and preferences. Don't try to figure out what you can sell these people. Figure out, where are their unmet needs? What is their current habit or task, and how is that not really working out for them? Or if you watch the task analysis videos, where do they have workarounds? Where do they have a lack of knowledge? You know, for example, my boyfriend didn't grow up eating a lot of ethnic food. So if I say to him, do you want to go eat Korean food? He doesn't have a sense of what that is. And as he's vegetarian, he doesn't have a sense if he's going to be able to find anything on the menu for him. There's a knowledge gap. He has no idea if he wants to go eat Korean food. He doesn't know what that is. So these are the types of things you would research, and I would say go check the micro lessons playlist for everything that says task analysis and consume it. All of the videos here have no ads, and so you should have a lovely ad-free experience here on my channel. This is Office Hours Ask Me Anything, and we've got, sorry, I'm getting a message from AT&T. They want me to know they're shutting down their 3G network in February, and I should get a new device. No thanks, I got this device here, and it's just fine. And it's way beyond 3G. I've got a Galaxy Note 9. I'm here for about another 10 minutes, and let's see, we've got a few more questions that rolled in, and one is from Shrivas, and it says, what is your favorite place in Italy? Could you also throw some light on the UX scene and job situation? For my search, I don't see much. Okay, that's 2 questions, but they're both free, so let's jump on them. My favorite place in Italy. So far, my house. I mean, where I live with my boyfriend, it's a wacky little house on a wacky little piece of land, but I absolutely love this area and this region, and I hope to buy some land someday. And but even if I didn't and I had to live in this house forever, that would be fine. So my favorite place is probably right here with my boyfriend and my dogs, though there are many, many interesting places to visit. I very much enjoyed the Archaeological Museum in Cagliari, which is on the southern tip of Sardinia. That is spelled Cagliari. If you want to look it up, the Archaeological Museum there was pretty darn cool. There's lots of Bronze Age stuff that they keep turning up here. So that's really neat. UX job situation. It's ugly out there. I say this seemingly every day. The job world is ugly out there. That's why I made my HR training, which you can send people to deltacx.link/HR-training. It's free. Our jobs are pretty terrible in most places. They want unicorns, as Shrivas and I were just talking about in the Slack channel. They want jacks of all unicorns, and they want to pay you 30 cents a week. So I don't have good news for anybody. I still see UX and CX splitting into separate things, where UX is going to be the jacks of all unicorns that are really just production designers, and CX are going to be the problem finders, problem solvers, business intelligence, risk mitigating change agents. So I think until that split happens a little bit more fiercely, which I still predict is coming in a year or two, it's not good out there. It's not even good for me out there. I have a hard time getting a job. Darren was having a hard time getting a job. Dr. Nick was having a hard time getting a job. When I met Larry Marine, he was having a hard time getting a job. It's just so unfortunate. Charlene says, we need a unicorn hat. If I can find a unicorn Mickey ears, I will buy one. All my hats are Mickey ears. Afzal says, I will check out the playlist. Thank you. Yeah, please do. I mean, we've got free lessons here, and we've also got our Slack channel, which is totally free. You can join our Slack workspace, and we are just in there helping each other out and asking questions all day. So join deltacx.link/join Slack. There is no membership fee or monthly or annual fee. It's totally free. Just before the pandemic, I promised myself that I would make as much available for free as I could. So if you're ever wondering, like, why is all this free? Where's Deb going to get me? Deb's not going to get you. Deb's hoping that somebody says, wow, Deb's pretty cool. Let's pay her to come speak at our company. That's the long game I'm playing. I do not want your money. Shriva says, thanks for the response. Thanks for the questions. I wish I had better answers to favorite place in Italy, but I have to admit, we haven't seen very much. You know, we had all these plans to do lots of road trips and stuff, and then the pandemic happened. So I really haven't seen too much, and I live on an island. So, and I haven't even seen too much of the island. You know, we've been locked down, so we're not locked down now, but now the tourists are here, so I'm avoiding them. But, we're on an island, so there's only so far I can get without putting our car on a ferry. Oh, well, I'm not cool, but I happen to live in a lovely place. Before this, I lived in the San Francisco area, which is lovely but ridiculously expensive, and I also enjoy Tucson, Arizona, which is very mild and mellow and mountainous and deserty, very beautiful. So I just try to live in pretty places. Because I can. I always feel like that's the blessing of no parents, no kids. It's like, where do I want to live? Okay, let's go there. Farzaneh also asked, what is the difference between strategy design and UX design? Now, this is one of those things where you might have read this in a job description, and I have no idea what the people who wrote the job description meant. I can tell you what I think the difference is, but it may or may not match up with what somebody else thinks the difference is. So, for UX is user experience, and to some of our coworkers, that means please just make pretty wireframes. But typically for us, it means user-centered design. So that's going to be all of the phases and tasks and methodologies that we can use to find problems and solve problems. The research, the content analysis, which we're going to do on July 26th, the information architecture, interaction design, testing, and more. And so ultimately, we are going to end up, if we do this process, we're going to end up with a product or service, or a piece of a product or service, often called a feature. So typically, UX or CX is the science and technique of going through this process to build something that makes sense for the customers, that is valuable to them, that is quality to them, but it's usually some sort of product or service. If someone said, we need you to design strategy, I would imagine that that is more high level to the company, that I'm probably not designing the product or service that the customer uses. I am probably involved more strategically to the company or to a department or to a set of products. I would imagine that I'm still using the user-centered design approach with research and other things to make sure we understand who our target users or customers are, what they're doing now, what works for them and what doesn't, all the things I said earlier, their tools, knowledge, and workarounds, their unknowns, their preferences, their habits, their needs, their motivations, and then how do we strategize within our company or department or product to try to create the best things for that end user or customer. So I would think that is strategy design, but I don't know how anyone else defines it. But I would think that someone, and I haven't seen the term strategy design, so it could mean anything. Typically, I see things like creating a strategy or strategic analysis or building strategy or guiding strategy or strategies, goals, and initiatives, but I usually don't see strategy design. So I don't know if that was a job title or something that a company put in a job description. To me, it's a little vague. I would probably ask what they mean by that, and if this job does have the authority to determine strategy. Because very often when you're a UX worker, you do not get to determine strategy. You are told, we're building a new checkout, do it. And you don't get to go, wait a minute, let's talk about the strategy of this. So we would have to double check there. There you go. So that catches me up on all of the questions. We didn't get very many questions today. We can wind down for today. And just a reminder that other than the Friday reaction streams, which you're welcome to send in wacky stuff for, deltacx.link/reaction. Other than the Friday reaction stream, we'll be back on Tuesday. We're skipping Monday because it's a holiday in America and people will be barbecuing and going to the beach and zooming around on boats. Kayleen says, do you see my question? I couldn't tell if your question was a real question or if it was rhetorical. So let me look at it again. Kayleen says, let's copy and paste it. Sorry about that, Kayleen. I should have asked you for more information on it if I didn't get it. That is my fault. Kayleen wrote, I find it hard to get research done right the first time. In the real world, can I afford to tell someone, hey, we found some great info, but we need to research again? Okay, that ends up being a question that makes more sense to me now that I've said it out loud. So I apologize that I didn't look at it before. But luckily, this is a low questions day. So, Kayleen, just knowing you, I would say that this is just beginner stuff. It is very rare for me or Larry Marine or Michelle Ronson or Joel Barr to walk away from research going, I didn't get that right. I didn't ask the right questions and I didn't meet my research goals. Press the do-over button. So I would say don't worry about this. It's certainly common for newbies and beginners to feel like at the end of the research, like, whoa, I'm not sure I got that quite right. I wish I could redo some or all of that. Totally common, totally normal, and that's why we're all learning and practicing. So right now you might feel like you can't get research done right the first time, but as far as I know, you've only tried 2 projects and just going to take a lot of practice. And in fact, Michelle Ronson was saying to me a couple of weeks ago, she doesn't expect people to be good at research until they've been doing it about 3 years. And so if this is still kind of your first year doing it, you still have a ways to go on your path. And so I don't want you to get down about it. I don't want you to feel like Dawn Music from Sesame Street and go, I'm never going to get this right, or, I just can't get this right the first time. You will, because you'll learn from some of your mistakes and you'll go, oh, you know what? Next time I have to make sure I ask questions about this because it really ended up being important for me to have learned this. It could also have been the goals of the research. Maybe the goals were not clear. Maybe the questions weren't a good match to the goals. Maybe the goals kind of changed somewhere in the middle, and so the questions didn't fit. Any of these things can happen in our projects or our workplaces, but I can tell you that I haven't felt that way, in at least 10 years. So I think it's just something that comes with practice, that eventually you will feel like you are better at predicting what kind of information you're going to need to meet your research goals, And then writing the right questions, recruiting the right people, planning everything the right way, chasing things in those conversations that maybe you're not chasing now to get that extra information is just something you'll get better at. And just knowing you personally, I know you will. So I'm not worried, and I hope you won't be either. Kayleen says, wow, okay, so it does get better. Yes, it absolutely does, says the person who is a champion pianist. Remember when you were not great at piano and then you got better at piano, and probably partially because you had hopefully some good teachers and you did a lot of practice, and you weren't great at piano necessarily in year 1 or year 2. I think about my year 1 on piano, that was age 4, not good on piano. So yeah, don't worry about it. This is all crawl before walking, and I wouldn't worry about it. It's just good if you can get more opportunities to practice before you have a real job, because I would say at a real job, they are going to kind of expect you to get it right, or at least darn close the first time. And I think that's why a lot of companies don't want to hire someone who doesn't have at least a year of work experience, because they're hoping that they've already leveled up and they've started to move away from some of the common newbie mistakes. So while I'm sorry that a lot of people can't get their first job because of that, gate, I also understand why that gate is there. Shannon says, piggybacking on Kayleen's question, what if the researcher on your team doesn't gather the right information you need and they aren't going to do the research again? Okay, so that is definitely an awkward situation where someone whose job it was to get information you needed didn't get information you needed. And I think a question that I would ask is, did they mess it up one time, or is this something they do a lot? Because if they tend to mess it up, then we've got to talk to managers, and we're going to have to say this out loud, and we're going to have to try to figure out if perhaps this researcher is not good at their job, or do they need additional training, or were they pushed into research, but they're really a business analyst. So we might have to look at, do they fit well in the tasks that they're doing, or have they been given tasks that don't best match their strengths? If it's just this one time, and usually this person does get the right things and does the right things, then I would probably cut them a little bit of slack, but of course that's bad for your project. I would also check with the manager if you could maybe try to do some quick research to get the information that you need. But all in all, as I talked about last night in episode 115, it's important to document risks. And I'll be talking about that more on July 7th. If you do not get the right information you need to craft strategies, make decisions, design something, understand what customers need or don't need, then you have to document that as risk. That we run the risk with this project, or even the whole product, that if we don't get the right information to be properly informed by good data or good research, we run the risk that this has to be redone later. And I don't mean just the research being redone later. You'd have to point out that the research being redone later would point to different designs, which would point to fresh engineering and coding and testing and merging and releasing. So you have to kind of paint the picture for people that getting this wrong really at any point in the longer process is going to cost us if this ends up not being a good match to customers, or if customer satisfaction is lower than we expected. But as you can see from my graphic, if we're messing it up at research, then that sets really the rest of it up for flaws or disaster. And that means more expense, more wasted time for companies. Again, I will talk about this on July 7th, because obviously that kind of waste is not agile and it's not lean. And it's part of why we are under so much pressure to be more agile and more lean. So I'll be talking about that a lot. And Solomon says, I've also had business people disappear on me for months after asking them a question about their pet project. And yeah, in that case, I would stop asking. I would send them a note and I would say, by the way, I haven't heard back on your project, and so I'm going to put it on hold and I'm going to shift to a higher priority. If you decide you are bringing this project back to life, let's work with project management and product management to reprioritize it and see where it fits in to our calendar. I would not spend too much time chasing down someone who can't give you information. I would say I'm going to have to put your project on hold if I cannot get the information I need. And actually, as a freelancer and a contractor and an agency and a consultancy, my contract actually says that. My contract actually says if I cannot get materials, information, decisions, or anything else I need from you, the client, I get to pause the project and keep the money. So, pow pow. Denise says, I am asked to do a UI improvement for a business requirement. I first did user research and questioned this requirement and found out the issue can't be solved by a UI improvement. Yeah, absolutely. That's where fantastic champions like Denise are our problem finders and problem solvers. There are critical thinkers. Denise gave us a great example just now of critical thinking. Someone said, we'll just solve it with UI improvement, updated design, blue button, rounded corners, whatever they said. And Denise was able to find out that's not going to solve the problem, which means if the people in Denise's world still push for that UI change, Denise should document that as risk. She should document that as potential waste. We have determined that this will not solve the problem because this is the problem, and this is why the solution, the proposed solution, doesn't match. This will waste time and money for our company. Document, document, document. I'm going to write that down. Document everything. Document all risk. I mean, I will be talking about that next week, but I feel like maybe I need one more slide where I'm just yelling it. Denise says, what can I do now? Document the risk. Denise says, even though I presented the results, I'm asked to do the UI improvement anyway, so what can I do? Document the risk. I'll be talking more about, I talked about a little bit about that in yesterday's show, episode 115. I'll be talking about that in next Wednesday's show, a week from tomorrow, episode 116. But basically, it is document the risk. You want to point out to the company that there is the chance that we do this project, we spend the time on it, we spend the money on it, and it doesn't solve the problem. And you want to warn everybody ahead of time that this is risk. This could waste time, waste money, waste resources, waste customer trust, and we still have just as many people going to customer support because it didn't solve the problem. We should document everything that is risk or is a potential waste or a potential non-solution. Let me write that down. Waste and non-solutions. I sure hope I can read my handwriting later. Solomon says they're often writing requirements for features without the supporting evidence that would justify them. Yes, I have slides on that in the what I'll be doing on July 7th. Kayleen says, when you say document, do you mean like a text file or a template or an email or a meeting? So very typically, companies do have some sort of standard way that they want risk to be documented. And even if they don't, there is typically some sort of central document kind of universe for the project. So for example, for those of you who use Atlassian products like Jira, Jira, you might be using Confluence, which is kind of like your own online Wikipedia. And people will write little pages or articles or blurbs in this like internal Wikipedia called Confluence. And that is normally where I would document it. So wherever product managers and project managers are putting other documents and information and records about the project is where I would add my documentation of risk. Good question. Let me make sure I make a slide about that for next week. Where do you put documentation of risk? In places like Confluence or wherever your delicious breakfast is stored. Stephanie says, document the risk, also known as cover your ass in case it gets ugly. Yeah, that's very true. But it's also a little bit of I told you so. I saw that this was going to happen. I knew that this was going to be a waste. I can see when waste is coming. Next time, I can save you from that waste. So it's a little bit of I told you so. Let me write that down. I told you so. Next time, less waste. Man, I've got to write new slides. Solomon says, whatever you discovered in your research, Denise, I would communicate it to stakeholders. They could still ignore you, but at least you're making them aware of the risks. Exactly. That's what risk documentation is about. It's not about you writing a note to yourself and just putting it on your screen or in your note area. It goes where the rest of the project notes are. So that stakeholders know about it. You want to bring it up in retro. Hey, how did our sprint go? Well, hey, we might be chasing something very foolish right now. Let's talk about this risk. We should not be walking straight into risky things. So use retro. Tell stakeholders. I'm writing all this down. Oh man, I'm never going to read my own writing. I'm going to have to email Solomon and be like, what did I say? I'm going to have to watch my own video back and go, what was I thinking? Dear future me. Well, now we're running late. We went from having no questions to having a mountain of them just at the end. So thanks to everybody for hanging out. I will see you briefly on Friday for a reaction stream, but then we're going to take off Monday for 4th of July in America, since so many people do a long weekend, and we will be back on Tuesday for office hours, and then Wednesday, July 7th for the big Agile and Lean extravaganza. I am blocking 2 hours for that stream also. Last night's took 2 hours, and I think this one is about the same length. So just warning, these are long, but if you decide to watch them later, you might be able to watch them at 1.5x, and I'm going to add their chaptering to make it easy for you to divide it up later. But these two, episodes 115 and future 116, are going to be the watch party at your company, even though if it's about 4 hours of stuff, you might need to break it up, or you might need to tell people book a half day. We are doing a half-day watch party on this. So I hope that helps. Kayleen says, it's the creativity. It takes some time for the questions to come. That's right, like Joe Rohde says. So I'm going to run, everybody, but have a great night. Please be safe. Got an email, but it wasn't relevant to this show, so there you go. Here is Farzaneh. Hello, nice to meet you. So thanks to everybody for hanging out today. Great questions, and hopefully some answers that help you go in the right direction. And wear 13 masks, and I will catch y'all very soon. Thanks. Bye.
Delta CX, available for CX and UX consulting, projects, and training. Contact us for a free consultation